We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Beis in Meseches Menachos. This is Menachos Daf 37b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara asked what would happen if a Bechor is born, a firstborn baby is born, but the baby has two heads. What would be the Pidyon Bechor? What would be the redemption? Generally, the redemption is 5 sloim. What would be in this situation? And on the previous Amud, the Gemara said since there are two heads, therefore the redemption is going to be 10 sloim. It's going to be double. And the Gemara asked, is this really the case? But there's a brisa which says that if a baby is born, a Bechor is born, and it is nitraf b'soch lamed, it is ravaged, killed by animals before it's 30 days old. So because the pasuk says, as the Gemara continues, ach, since it says in the pasuk ach, that serves to chilek, that differentiates, and says that in such a situation by nitraf, it's excluded from pidyon bechor, and the Gemara assumes the same should be true when it comes to a baby with two heads that will not survive. Rashi explains, ach chilek ach podo sifta, it says in the pasuk ach podo sifta, that's the ach. V'hainami kin nitraf dami, this case with two heads is the same as nitraf. Sha'arei lo yichya, for the baby will not live. And so therefore, again, why would it be that the pidyon would be 10 sloim? And the Gemara continues and answers, no, shani hach, it's different over here. The v'gulgolas tala rachmana, the pasuk says it's dependent upon the head. Rashi explains, v'gulgolas tala rachmana, it's dependent upon the skull. Lepidyon bechor, in terms of redemption of the firstborn. Dechsiv, because it's actually written in the pasuk, chamesh shkalim lagulgolas. It says chamesh shkalim lagulgolas. And so therefore we see that it is dependent upon the gulgolas. V'hai isle trey, and this particular baby has 2 skulls. And so therefore there is an obligation to redeem for double the amount. V'imi shamach chilek, and Rashi explains, if you're going to say what about ach, which differentiates, should that be an exclusion? But hashtam yalomis, right now this baby has not died, and so therefore there is an obligation. And the Gemara continues, Amar Mar, the master said, going back to what we said on the previous summon from a brisa, Yodcha Zuki Bores, it says Yodecha in the pasuk, Zuki Bores, again that refers to the bicep, that's where the tefillin shel yad are placed. And the Gemara says, Minolan, from where do we know this? And the Gemara says, the Tan Rabbanan, for the sages taught in a brisa, Al Yodecha, it says Al Yodecha, Zu Gova Shabiyad, this is the upper part of the arm. Rashi explains, Gova Ki Bores, again that's the bicep, Du Eitzel HaKosef, that's near the shoulder. And the brisa continues, Ata Omer Zugova Shabiyad, you're saying that it refers to the upper part, that it refers to the bicep, the upper part of the arm. Oeino Ella Al Yodecha Mamish, maybe it means really on your hand, it means on the palm, on the actual hand. And the brisa continues, Amr Torah, the Torah says, Hanach Tfilin Biyad, V'hanach Tfilin Barosh. It says that tefillin should be placed on the arm or on the hand, and should also be placed on the head. And Mala Halon Begova Shabarosh, just like over there, meaning when we're talking about the tefillin shel rosh, it's the upper part of the head. Afkan begova shabiyad, so to here it's the upper part of the arm. Rashi explains, Yodecha mamish kaf, maybe we would think it really is the palm, it really is the actual hand. Malahalan begova shabarosh, just like over there it's the gova shabarosh. Kedi alfinan lekaman mikrai, we're going to learn that later on from Sukkim, and so therefore again we compare it to the tefillin shel rosh, just like over there it's gova shabarosh, so to over here it is gova shabiyad. And the brisa continues, Rabbi Eliezer Omer Einot Tzarech. Rabbi Eliezer says this proof is not necessary. We have a different proof. Harehu Omer, it says in the pasuk, V'haya l'chol la'os, it says it's a sign for you, and we darshan that to mean as follows. We understand that as follows, l'chol la'os. It is a sign for you, for the person wearing the tefillin shel yad, v'lo le'acherim la'os, but it's not a sign for others, meaning it is placed in an area of the arm that is generally hidden, covered up from others, which again would be the upper part of the arm, the bicep area. It's a sign for the person wearing it, but others will not see that sign. And Rashi explains, V'lo la'acherim los, it's not a sign for others. Shelo yiru hachutza, it isn't seen to the outside. V'i bekaf, now if the tefillin shel yad were placed on the actual hand, mischazi l'kuli alma, so then it would be seen by everybody. And so therefore, again, that's Rabbi Eliezer's source, that it's the upper part of the arm. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yitzchak Omer, Rabbi Yitzchak says, Eino tzarech, that proof is not necessary. Harehu Omer, it says in the pasuk, V'samtem es devrei eila al levavchem, it says that you're going to place this on your heart, ukshartem, and then you're going to bind it. And we understand that to mean, shetei sima keneged halev, since it mentions the heart, and then it mentions the binding of the tefillin, it should be placed opposite the heart, and so therefore again the bicep area of the arm. And Rashi explains, Ki bores keneged halevi, again the bicep that corresponds, that is opposite the heart. And the Gemara continues, Rav Chia v'Ravacha b'rei Rav Avya, Rav Chia and Ravacha b'rei Rav Avya. The Shitu Mekubetzes changes the girsa simply to Rav Chia b'rei Rav Avya, Rav Chia the son of Rav Avya, Mechavin u'molech le'lahadei libe, he placed the tefillin, again the tefillin shel yad, opposite the heart. And the Gemara continues, Rav Ashi have a Yosef Kame de Ameimar. Rav Ashi was sitting before Ameimar. Have it Syria biyode. There was a tear by his arm, by the area of the bicep. V'kam mischazion tefillin, and the tefillin shel yad were able to be seen. Amar Leiso, he said to him, Lo savar lo mar l'cholos v'lo la'acherim los. Doesn't the master hold it's a sign for you, but not for others? And these tefillin shel yad are showing that's not appropriate. Amar Le, he said back to him, that's not what it means. B'makom l'cholios itmar. It simply means in an area where generally it is just a sign for you, but it's no problem if others see it. It's just telling you the location of the tefillin shel yad. Rashi explains, Havitziria biyade maka hoisolo etzel hakiboris. What happened was there was a wound by the area of his bicep, v'nikra chiluko sham, and so his garment was torn over there. Kedei shelo tidcha kamaka, that way the wound wouldn't hurt. V'hayunirin hatfilin derech hakriya, and so the tefillin were able to be seen through the tear. B'makom lechol os itmar, and so he responded, it's in the place where it is for you a sign, meaning makom sherov b'nei adam ein nir lacherim. It's the area where most people it's not going to be visible to others. Tainu kiboris, which again is the bicep, uliolam im nikra shari, but really again, if the garment would tear, that would still be permitted. And the Gemara continues, Gova shebarosh menolan, from where do we know that it's at the upper part of the head and not actually between the eyes, referring to the tefillin shel rosh. The Gemara continues, Detanu rabbanan, as the sages taught in a brisa, bein einecha, it says between your eyes, by the tefillin shel rosh. Zu gova shebarosh, this actually refers to the upper part of the head. Ata omer zu gova shebarosh, you're saying it's the upper part of the head. Oeinu ela bein einecha mamish, maybe it really means between your eyes. Nemar kan bein einecha, it says over here between your eyes. V'nemar lahalan, and it says further on in the pasuk, it says lo sasimu karcha bein einechem lameis, don't place a bald spot between your eyes over the dead. And over there, malahalon begova shebarosh, now just like over there it's the upper part of the head, makom sha'osa karcha, because it's the place where a person would rip out their hair and make a bald spot, and so therefore clearly over there bein einechem is a reference to gova shebarosh. Afkan, so too over here with regards to the tefillin shel rosh, begova shel rosh, we're talking about the upper part of the head, makom sha'osa karcha, place where it's possible to make a bald spot. And the brisa continues, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Eino tzarech, this proof is not necessary. Amra Torah, because the Torah says, Hanach tefillin biyad, it says place tefillin on the arm, and Hanach tefillin barosh, and place the tefillin on the rosh, on the head. Malahalan, just like over there, b'makom haroi litame b'nego echad, when we're talking about the arm, that is a place which is fit for one kind of nega, one kind of tzaras can apply to that area of the body. Afkan, so it's over here by the rosh, b'makom haroi litame b'nega echad, it has to be a place on the head where there can be just one kind of tzaras. Lafuke bein einechan, and that would exclude literally between your eyes, between the eyes, there's more than one kind of tzaras that can be in that area. Deika basar v'seir, because there is over there, there's flesh, meaning skin, and there's also hair. Deika sar lavan v'ika nami sar tzov, and so you have different indications of tzaras. You have the white hair indication, and you have the yellow hair indication, and so therefore it can't be bein einecha mamish, it can't actually be between your actual eyes. And Rashi explains, Bein einecha mamish, again, between your eyes, mamish begova einav, again, that would be the area of the actual, between the area actually between the eyes. Sha'osa karcha, an area where one can make a bald spot, meaning sheyesh bo sar, that there's hair over there. V'morto osa karcha, if the person's going to pluck out the hair, it'll be a bald spot. Yad b'nega echad, Rashi explains, the arm that has one kind of tzaras, sar lavan, the kind of tzaras, as if there's a white hair in that area. V'rosh b'nega echad, and then the hair, the head also has one kind of tzaras, sar tzov, that's a yellow hair. Techsib Parshas Negoim, that's all written in Parshas Negoim, the Parsha of Tzaras. Gabe rosh v'zokon boy sar tzov l'tamo, by the rosh and the zokon, by the head and the beard. So it's a yellow hair that makes tamei. Alma mokom sar tamei. So again, you see, we're talking about an area where there's hair is tamei, besar tzov, the tamei specifically with yellow hair. And some take out the words besar tzov over here. And Rashi continues, Lafuke bein einecha deika, but that comes to exclude between your eyes, because there you have the sar de gabos einayim, you have over there hair that's by the eyebrows, v'ika basar, and then there's also basar, their skin as well, uvoi tarti, and so therefore there's a requirement of two, or there's two possible signs, so to speak, for the tzaras. Sar lovan bebasar, there's the white hair by the skin, v'sar tzov b'makom sar, and then there's the yellow hair that's in the area of the hair. And the Gemara Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Arba tzitzios ma'akvos azu azu, the four tzitzis, that's tzitzis on all four corners of the garment, they are required for one another. Sha'ar bosan mitzvah achas, the four of them, they make one mitzvah. And the Mishnah went on to bring the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael that they're actually separate mitzvos. And the Gemara asks, my beinayu, well, what's the practical difference between the two opinions in the Mishnah? And Rashi explains the question, my beinayu mikol makom, nevertheless, bein lamar uvein lamar, according to either opinion, ba'inon dalet tzitzis, there still is a requirement of four tzitzis. K'dechsiv al arba kanfos k'suscho, like it says, on the four corners, meaning to say everybody agrees there's a requirement of tzitzis on all four corners. The only question is, let's say one of the corners is missing, have you fulfilled any mitzvah at all, let's say with the other three corners, or have you fulfilled nothing? That's a machlokas in the Mishnah, but still all four corners require tzitzis. That's why the Gemara is asking what is the difference between the two opinions. And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Rav Yosef says, Sodin b'tzitzis ika beinayu, the difference is, let's say a linen garment with wool tzitzis, that would be a practical nafkamina. Rashi explains, Sodin depishton, again you have a garment that is linen, b'tzitzis, b'tchelas de'imrahu, and then it has tzitzis, which is wool. Ika beinayu, there's a machlokas. L'tanakama do'amar mitzvah achasein. According to the Tanakama, who says that it's all one mitzvah, and if you just do part of it, you've done nothing. Hilkachi chaser sadin tzitzis echad. Therefore, if the linen garment would be missing just one tzitzis, one corner, like a mitzvah, there's no mitzvah at all. And then v'havaluhu inoch kilayim. Now you have a problem of kilayim because you're not allowed to mix the wool and the linen. Ula Rabbi Yishmael, but according to Rabbi Yishmael, lo have kilayim, it's not going to be kilayim. Tahashalosh shenisharu shlosha mitzvos, because the three that do have tzitzis, so those are considered mitzvos, and therefore the mitzvah overrides the prohibition of kilayim. And so that practical difference is with regards to kilayim, with regards to shatnez. And the Gemara continues with another answer as to a practical difference between the two opinions. Rava Barahina Amar, Rava Barahina says, Talis balas chamesh ika beinayu. The difference between them is, let's say you have a garment and it has 5 corners, and Rashi explains, balas chamesh means shechotach mikeren ha'echad balachzon. He cuts from one corner in a diagonal. V'hava ba shnei karnaim. So now it comes out to shnei karnaim. It comes out to have 2 corners over there. Vitana lekamon b'atchelas. We learn later on in atchelas talis balas chamesh. If you have a talis of 5 corners, chayeves b'tzitzis. There is an obligation of tzitzis. V'yolef mi ribuya da asher techasaba. We learn it from an inclusion asher techasaba. L'tanakama do'amar mitzvah achasein. So the difference, the practical difference between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yishmael is as follows. According to the Tanakama that says it's all one mitzvah, savar arba dafka lemitzvah achas. So he holds that 4 corners, that makes one mitzvah. V'chi Ravi Rachmana balas chamesh, and when the Torah says that if it has 5 corners, it's obligated. Lahatil arba kanfoseha Ravia, that is in order to say that those 4 corners require. V'lo lahatil knaf chamishi. It's not that you have to put on the 5th corner also tzitzis. So mitzvah tzitzis bedalid kanfos. The mitzvah of tzitzis is still going to be 4 corners, according to the Tanakama, again, who says that it all is one mitzvah. Well, Rabbi Yishmael Damar, but according to Rabbi Yishmael, who says arbos and arba mitzvahs, that each one is its own mitzvah, each corner. So ki Rabbi Rachmana balas chamesh nami lahatil lekulo. So if the Torah includes that if it has 5 corners also, there's an obligation. So lekulo Rabbi. So that means that every corner is going to need that mitzvah. To kol chad mitzvah b'yan pei nafsha, because each one is a mitzvah independently. And the Gemara continues with another answer as to the practical difference between the two opinions in the Mishnah. Ravina Amar Ravina says, "De Rav Huna ika beinayu." The difference between the two opinions is within the halacha taught by Rav Huna. The Amar Rav Huna, because Rav Huna said, "Hayotze betalis she'ina mitzuyetzes ki hilchos." If a person goes out in a talis and the tzitzis are not on that talis properly, and he goes out b'Shabbos, he goes out on Shabbos, so chayiv chatas, he's actually liable to a chatas for that. And Rashi explains, the Rav Huna ika beinayu v'kuli alma islu de Rav Huna, meaning everybody agrees with Rav Huna's halacha that if one goes out in a talis and the tzitzis are not on properly, that there's a violation and there's a liability to a chatos. Miu hitel l'shalosh v'lo l'dalid. Now, nevertheless, let's say you have such a talis, and on 3 corners there's tzitzis and not on the 4th. So l'tanakama have a mitzuyetzes shalok hilchas. So according to Tanakama, that's not proper tzitzis. V'chayiv chatos, and so therefore that garment, it's considered considered like you're carrying that garment, not like you're wearing that garment, and that's why there's a chiv chatas. To have a luhu tzitzis masoi, and the reason is because those tzitzis that are on that garment, the garment itself is being worn, but the tzitzis are really just being carried, because the tzitzis are not fulfilling any mitzvah. Ul Rabbi Yishmael, and according to Rabbi Yishmael, who says each is its own mitzvah, have a mitzuyetzes kihil chasad the gimel mitzvah. You do have 3 mitzvahs over there on the 3 corners. V'yeino pasul, and therefore it's not going to be disqualified with the Rav Huna ba'asuya b'psul. And Rav Huna's halacha specifically when it's done in disqualification, there it's considered to be liable to a chatas, but not in this situation, according to Rabbi Yishmael. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Shisha Berei de Ravidi, Rav Shisha the son of Ravidi said, Haiman de botzre leglime, somebody who cuts his garment, lo avid velo klum, he hasn't done anything in terms of exempting it from the obligation of tzitzis, because all he has done is shavia talis balas chamish, he's turned it into a talis that has 5 corners, which is in fact obligated, as we just said above. Rashi explains, de botzre leglima, shechotach echon min hakronos, again, he cuts one of the corners, chaticha, he cuts it, kagon pegima, denir, and kishnei karnaim, now it's like 2 corners, lo avad klum lepochim and tzitzis. He hasn't done anything to exempt it from tzitzis, because all he has done is shavia talis balasei. He's just made it a talis with 5 corners, which again, as we said, is obligated. And the Gemara continues, Amar of Misharshia says, Haiman det saire leglime, somebody who ties his garment, lo avad velo klum, he has not done anything. My time, what's the reason? Decheman de shari yodami, because it's as if it is untied. And Rashi explains, Haiman det saire leglime, an individual who ties his garment, shahaisa taliso arucha. The case according to Rashi is that the talis, the garment was long. The kafla v'tola had tzitzis bekarnas hakefel, and then he folded it over, and he put the tzitzis over there now in that folded over part of the corner. Afagav shetzrora v'divka, even though he tied it, he put it together. Shelo tachzor leisan, it's not going to go back to the way it used to be. It's essentially going to be a shorter garment. Lo avad klum, he hasn't done anything. To sofer lahater, because in the end it will be untied. V'lachzor leisan, it's going to go back to its old length. V'nimtzu tzitzis b'msiyas, and now the tzitzis are actually in the wrong place, they're in the middle. V'anon kanfos bin, and the requirement is that we have it in the corner. Hilkach mehashta command the shar yadamya, therefore we view it even from right now as if it is untied. And the Gemara continues, Utanan nami, and we learned in a Mishnah like this also, this is a Mishnah in Meseches Kalim, Kol chamosos hatzuros, all of the bound jugs, these are bound leather jugs, tahoros, they are pure, and the idea is again because they will be untied, chutz mishal arvim, except those of the Arabs, because those are permanent ties and they're not going to be untied. And Rashi explains, Kol chamasos nodos hatzuros, again the jugs that are tied, she'ein shulein tafur, and the point over here is that their bottoms are not sewn together, they're not stitched together, elot tzurur, and rather they're tied together, so then we say tahorin, they're pure. De'ein mekablan tumah, they don't receive tumah, they don't become tameh, de roen kilu nitter hakesher, because we view it as if the knot is untied, and therefore veleka beis kibul, therefore it's not really a receptacle, we view it as if it's open, it can't contain anything. V'havik kli hanokov, it's like a vessel that is a hole, but motzi rimon, and the hole is large enough for a pomegranate, and so therefore we say that it is tar, it is pure, so that's the same basic idea that we view it as if it's untied, chutz mishal arviyim, with the exception of those of the Arabs, the darkon bekach, because they would tie it again with a permanent knot, and they would leave it like that, and therefore, in terms of theirs, we would say that it is tameh. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Dimi Minahardoi said, Haiman dechaite leglime, one who sews his garment, and Rashi explains, Haiman dechaite leglime shekafel taliso ketafarishas, again, he folded over his garment like was explained earlier, vitafra, but he stitched it together, shalos ashav leisan, it's not going to return to the way it was, but va'afilu hachi lo asaklum, still as we're about to see, he has not done anything, techman deshaire damya, because it is as if it is undone, as the Gemara continues and says, Lo avad velo klum, he hasn't done anything. Why? Im isa de lo mi boy lei lifsok v'lashadi. If he really didn't need that part of the garment, so he could have cut it and tossed it aside. Instead, he folded it over. And Rashi explains, Im isa de lo mi boy lei im arucha hilof. It is really too long for him. Ve'en etzrichlo, he didn't need that extra part. He didn't need srichlo arucha kol he didn't need it so long. So lifsok osa kefel v'lishti, he should have just cut that off. V'yachar kach yisle hatzitzis, and then put on the tzitzis. And that's why we say the folding it over, even if he sews it, it does not mean anything. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. The Mishnah said, Rabbi Yishmael, Omer Rabbi Yishmael says, Arbasan arba mitzvahs, again, the 4 tzitzis on the 4 corners, they are 4 mitzvahs, they are separate mitzvahs. And the Gemara says, Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Rabbi Yehuda says that Shmuel says, Halacha ka Rabbi Yishmael, the halacha is like Rabbi Yishmael, but the Gemara says, Veles hilchasa kavase, but the halacha is not like him. And Rashi explains halacha Rabbi Yishmael. The halacha is like Rabbi Yishmael. V'chihanach shenuyei da'amrin le'el my beinayu. And then we would follow again the answers we gave earlier in terms of the practical differences between the Tana Kama and Rabbi Yishmael. And the Gemara continues, Ravina have ka'ozal abasrei demar bar Ravashi b'shabso de rigla. Ravina, he was following Mar bar Ravashi on the Shabbos of the holiday. Rashi explains Shabbos de rigla means Shabbos shedorshin behilchas haregel. This is the Shabbos where they would teach the various laws of the upcoming holiday. Kedekaimelon, as we've established, Shoal and behilchas haPesach kodem haPesach lamed yom. We ask regarding the laws of Pesach before Pesach 30 days. 30 days before Pesach, we inquire with regards to the laws of Pesach, and so it was the Shabbos of the regel. And again, Ravina, he was following Mar bar Ravashi. And ifsik karna dechute, the corner where the tzitzis were, one of those corners, it broke, it fell off. V'lo amar le v'lo midi, and he didn't say anything to him. And Rashi explains, ifsik karna dechute tzitzis de Mar bar Ravashi, the tzitzis of Mar bar Ravashi, it came off. And again, Ravina, he didn't say anything, even though he saw that the tzitzis came off, he did not say anything. Kadmota levesi, now when he arrived at his house, Amar Le said to Mehasam Ifsik, was already back there that the tzitzis broke. Amar Le, so he said back to him, Mar bar Ravashi said back to Ravina, Iamritli Mehasam Shadise, had you told me over there, so I would have taken off the garment. Rashi explains, Mehasam Divsika Shadise Hayisi Mashalicha Me'ala, I would have taken the garment off. The less Hilchas Rabbi Yishmael, the point here is that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yishmael, so I would have had a problem. It's all one mitzvah, and therefore if one tzitzis broke off, then I'm essentially carrying the rest of the tzitzis on Shabbos, and that's a violation of Shabbos. Ela ketana kama, because the halacha is like the Tana Kama, again that it's all one mitzvah. V'keven dechasru ein ba mitzvah, and since there's something missing, one of the tzitzis is missing, there's no mitzvah. V'havikamasui, it's as if I'm carrying, so had I known, I would have taken off the garment. But the Gemara continues, V'ha'amar mar, he said back to him, but didn't the master say that Gadol kavod habrius, that kavod habrius, respect for human dignity, is so great, shedoches lo saseh shebetorah, it pushes off a lo saseh in the Torah, and so therefore you shouldn't take off your garment, even though there's a lo saseh involved, you shouldn't take off the garment, because that would be a violation of kavod habrius, of human dignity. And the Gemara continues in answers to that, Tirgam Rav bar Shava kamid Rav Kahana, Rav bar Shava in front of Rav Kahana, he interpreted this idea of Gadol kavod habrius in a more narrow sense, as we will see, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Ches Amud Aleph.